Let's bring in our AM Agenda panel with us this morning. Labor MP Nick Champion, and also joining us, the Liberals' Kelly O'Dwyer. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Nick Champion, you voted for Kevin Rudd, I'm assuming, in the ballot last night.
I did.
Why?
Well, look, as I said to you, I think a year ago, I think there was always a sense of unfinished business between the people of Australia and Kevin Rudd. I think they wanted to make a decision on his prime ministership, and they wanted to see him fulfil his prime ministership in its fullest extent. And I think, you know, the nearest historical analogy that we've got is that of Menzies. Menzies had a period of prime ministership before his long prime ministership, which wasn't so successful.
So we're going to have 16 years of Kevin Rudd government now.
Well, I don't know about that. History is not always a guide for the future, but what it is a guide for, I think, is to say that Kevin now has a second chance to be prime minister and to, in my opinion, bring Australians together and for us to have a real contest of ideas and of policies. Which is terribly important for the country at this time. We live in a very complex world. There's a lot going on internationally. The challenges of economic growth, the challenges of climate change, the challenges
Which are all challenges he faced first time around. Is he going to be a different prime minister?
Well, I think there were some very real successes the first time round.
Some failures too,
our nation. Well, let's look at the successes first.
Well,
our
let's
nation,
not ignore the failures.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to. Our nation avoided the global financial crisis, no doubt about that.
And racked up a lot of debt.
Every nation's racked up a lot of debt, and we've got less debt than any other nation, any other nation in the G20 and in OECD. Our position is much better. Low unemployment, low inflation, low interest rates, and a growing economy, which helps you service your debt.
And a border protection failure.
Well, look, I guess on border protection, there is no doubt that the country faces real challenges, and we've got to come up with Australian solutions. And the great problem
to dismantle the Pacific solution.
Well, I think if we had our time over again, we may well do things differently. That doesn't mean, though, that we wouldn't get a surge of arrivals. We almost certainly would have got a surge of arrivals from Sri Lanka because there was a terrible war there, where about 150,000 people were herded into camps. Now, when you get that, people will flee. People will flee barbed wire camps. We know that. So we probably always would have faced this issue, and the challenge for this Parliament has been to try and forge an Australian solution. It's been my great regret that the Parliament hasn't been able to do that. It's been my great regret that there's been...
so there'll be something happening on that?
Well, it's clearly something the Parliament has to grapple with.
Can Kevin Rudd win?
I think he can. Yeah, I think he can.
You seriously believe that you can turn it around from where it is now, or is that just the line that you spin?
No. I've always thought that there was a very good chance that Kevin Rudd could win.
Why?
Well, as I said before, there was a sense of unfinished business before. I think there's a deep reservoir of affection for Kevin Rudd out there in the public, certainly in my electorate, a deep reservoir of affection which, if you like, I think, ignores some of the, the YouTube videos that have got 700 views but get played by the media incessantly. Ordinary people aren't interested in that. They're interested in making their judgment about Kevin Rudd.
Let's bring in Kelly O'Dwyer. Kelly, will there be a move from the opposition today to test the numbers with a no-confidence motion?
Well, first let me say this, David. I think Australians going to bed last night and waking up this morning had a great sense of deja vu. It was 3 years ago that we saw Julia Gillard knife Kevin Rudd, and we have seen him now return the favour and knife Julia Gillard. The truth is,
now we've got the line. What about the question? What about the question? Okay, we got that. What about the question? Will there be a no-confidence motion?
Well, look, it is for Kevin Rudd to state his platform. It's for Kevin Rudd to declare that he has the confidence of the Parliament. That's not a question for the opposition. That is a question for Kevin Rudd as Prime Minister. The fact is, though, he doesn't even have the confidence of more than a third of his shadow cabinet. I was going to say shadow cabinet, but cabinet. And the fact is he has more than half of his caucus colleagues who are very concerned about him as leader.
So will this be, this obviously, there's a sense that it reboots the political debate. Will it make it more difficult for Tony Abbott? Because he certainly seemed to have Julia Gillard's measure. Does he need to consolidate, re-look at things and how he's going to tackle the Labor government now?
Well, it's going to be more of the same. It's the same old Labor circus and it's the same old ringmaster. I mean, let's not forget Kevin Rudd was responsible for the border protection decisions that were made, dismantling the border protection policy that has now led to more than $10 billion in budget blowouts. We've seen more than 45,000 people arrive now illegally by boat. We have also seen the budget go into budget chaos, 5 consecutive budget deficits. We are going to crash through the $300 billion gross debt ceiling. This is a government that is obsessed with itself, not obsessed with the future of the Australian people.
Nick Champion, we've seen a lot of resignations overnight.
I think I've
Wayne
just lost the line.
Sorry, we'll re-establish that, Kelly. But Nick Champion, the resignations last night, Wayne Swan, Greg Combet, Craig Emerson, Joe Ludwig, Peter Garrett, who else am I forgetting? Stephen Conroy there as well. There's a lot of experience walking off the front bench. Does that hurt Labor?
Well, look, all of those people gave great service to the Labor movement and did great things. I mean, Stephen Conroy is a hero out in my electorate. Has really single-handedly changed, I think, broadband in this country and the future of people, particularly in the outer suburbs and particularly in country Australia. His plans, the things that he's put in place, will eliminate the tyranny of distance, and it's very similar with other ministers as well. So I guess I'd like to honour their commitment. Clearly they've made, I think, honourable decisions in their interests and in the interests of the party, and it's now up to the Prime Minister to forge a cabinet, a ministry, that reflects party unity.
Nick Champion, thanks very much for that. And I appreciate your time, Kelly O'Dwyer, as well. Thank you. And we'll take a quick break on this extended edition of AM Agenda. We'll be back in just a moment with a lot more, including the Prime Minister-designate Kevin Rudd swearing in at Government House.